At the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year here in Del Norte County, with students finally having a normal year since the COVID pandemic, rumors had begun of students overdosing on school grounds from vaping. While overdosing is not necessarily an out-of-the-ordinary thing for most American high schools, the rumors itself claimed it was fentanyl overdoses, and from vapes/e-cigarettes. Fentanyl is an incredibly potent synthetic opioid, which has become the face of the opioid epidemic in recent years. In the last 2 years or so, fentanyl discussion has been on the rise, with deaths caused by it. From preliminary data given by the California Department of Health, fentanyl had killed 5,722 across the state in 2021 alone. Nationally, deaths caused by fentanyl have increased by 1,125% between 2011 and 2017, according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Data across California has indicated that fentanyl, with its rise, has begun moving more northern over the last 3 years. The purpose of this interview was originally to discuss fentanyl and the rumors of it. While this is still the case, the interview with Miss Alison Eckart, principal of Norte High School, dives into other subjects, such as general drug use on school grounds, how staff is handling changes because of the fentanyl scare, and systems to help prevent it. So the first one I want to start with is I read a story about it, that teachers at the high school were being trained for Naloxone or Narcan sprays. So how's that been going?
So the Naloxone, well, we had a training from UIHS from Humboldt County, and so that lady was awesome, came up here at our faculty meeting dated like December 5th, I think. And this was prompted by the school board taking some action. So we did not do this, it was not my brainstorm child. Naloxone is, the nurse from UIHS stated that it is not dangerous to take naloxone, that there's no side effects that are dangerous, and it's not a drug. But what it does is it only targets something called fentanyl. And so it won't work like on an overdose of pot or of nicotine, but it is directed towards fentanyl, and it can save lives. And so when the board, the school board back in October, started talking about some of the fentanyl concerns in the county, they did recommend that it might be good. So all of our nurses had it at the time, but we started to see an increase of kids passing out. And at that point, I think that's what prompted it, as well as what's happening in the county. And then there was a recent death, I guess, of someone down in Humboldt that was a police officer, which I don't know much about, but I heard it. Yeah. We also got protective gloves that are a higher level of protection. So when we do searches, we wear these gloves. So you'll see them. Okay. So that because of they said that some of the synthetic fentanyl could, and that's how the cop died, was through a synthetic touch.
Skin contact.
That's what I've heard. I'm not an expert.
Who knows how true that is.
So the training was really good because it talked about what it was, what it wasn't, and then kind of why we're seeing an increase of it. Also, just that level of protection. We know that we're the biggest concern is like the Good Samaritan law. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like it's used to be with CPR. Like you can't sue me if I'm trying to rescue you. That type of that's a simplified version. Same thing with naloxone. So you're trying to help somebody. We saw it. What it is a, like, for lack of a better term, it's like a like an allergy sniffer, a pump, stick it up your nose and squeeze once and then remove it. And but that's supposed to just really target and attack where and stop some of the chemicals going in. I have never used one. My teachers were not forced to take the naloxone cans, but they were offered. We did get provided at least 4 dozen of those, so we do have them on campus ready to go. So we got trained in that, and I think a lot of the people were really excited to get the training because more information is better. The problem is we don't know, like, those of us, we don't know how to identify it. So we're like, okay, what does fentanyl look like? Well, it's synthetic. It could look like this. So they talked a lot about the pill. I wrote it down. Percocet, I think, is an opioid like whatever. And they're talking. So a lot of these are coming and looking like regular prescription drugs, and they're not. They're homemade. So that's our big fear. And so we can't. When we see, like, that's why you guys can't bring pills on campus, is we have to be able to identify them. We don't know what they are. You don't know what you're giving to people. And we take it very seriously. Yeah. So overall, I thought the staff appreciated the openness of it. They appreciated the presenter. They appreciated having the opportunity to take the naloxone. We did address the fact that it can be political, because if you have a naloxone, it's almost like you're saying, well, it's okay to take an overdose because I'll just get naloxone. Right. So that we addressed that. In that, just be aware of that could be, some overreach. So there's a lot of overwhelming feelings. Had it already on top of pandemic and vaping, but I think it was a good start.
As stated by Ms. Eckart, the school board had requested a nurse from UIHS in Humboldt County to train staff in naloxone sprays, with also some of the school nurses being given some of the sprays, which are completely harmless, only used to stop ODing. And seemingly, the training went well and was received kindly by school staff. How were the teachers' reaction to that? And you already said that a lot of them seemed like overwhelming positive. And another question I was going to ask is, has any teachers have to use naloxone or any of that yet?
No. That I know of. So we agreed. They asked me, well, do we need to secure it? Well, it's not a drug. It's not a controlled substance. And we all kind of had a discussion, like, do you want to keep it so you have it in reach? You don't want to have to get it behind a locked cabinet because if a kid has got a fentanyl overdose. So we kept it. We all kind of agreed, keep it where you're comfortable. Keep it where you're comfortable. And again, you don't have to do this. We're not saying that this is an additional duty for teachers, because a lot of that first responder stuff, we're just trying to inform, and I kind of want to save a life, but we're also having CHP, like armed people invasion, whatever it's called.
I can't remember.
What's it called? The lockdown. Active shooter training. We're having active shooter training in January. And again, it's just like the job of a teacher is going to be a first responder.
It's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. Okay, so we haven't had a teacher use it. We agreed to keep it in a place where we could get it. And if a kid took it, see, like that's a good question. Like, what if a kid takes the naloxone?
Right, they steal it or they.
Okay, but you can get them at the clinic. They are handed out by public health. So I kind of go, I'm not a health expert, but I'm like, okay, so it's like a Band-Aid. Like you get a Band-Aid.
That's how they're handing it out.
But I don't know. I'm still really ambiguous about it because I think about children.
Yeah.
And I believe in that education piece. Like, let me educate you about fentanyl. Let me educate you about the option, the choices, the fact that it's synthetic. I think that's the number one, and addiction. And so the truest of us kind of go, education's going to solve this. And so it's kind of sad that we have to go here, but because it's for the safety of children, I don't mind going here.
Yeah.
And I believe the majority of my staff would say the same.
Naloxone has not been used at the school yet, with staff keeping it in a safe area and it being handed out by the clinic. What they want to educate students on synthetic opioids and the dangers of them, it becomes a challenge when you are also left in the dark. So when we had talked, I think it was last week, when we were planning the interview, you had said that there were 0 overdoses on school grounds.
On fentanyl.
I know. Or just, I didn't know if you meant specifically fentanyl or just in general. Are you able to talk about that, explain it further?
I can to an extent.
To a little bit.
Okay. So, as you know, we're a school, not the hospital. So we really never know what anybody is having a seizure for.
Right.
So when let's define our terms, right? So you say overdose, I say they're having a seizure, and that is true.
Is a better way to look at it is just as students needing medical attention?
Students need medical
attention. Instead of like overdosing, having seizures, or is it, just times when medical attention is
general sort of middle ground.
That's a good way. The problem is when I call 911, what's your emergency?
Right.
So I've called on an emergency for a student that was out of control, and we had to lock down the school, and of no fault by his own. I've had to call. I have a student who is not breathing. I have a student who is having a grand mal. So you're trying to be as specific, and then because we go, okay, medical history. First thing we do is, kids down, what's the medical history? Is there anything we need to know? Because I have kids who have epilepsy. Our first response is you're supposed to count, whatever the parent medical with the nurse, that response is. So the first thing I have to do is check that. That's private. So you'll never know if my students have epilepsy or are prone to seizures. So then we call the EMT, and then medical attention is delivered. We usually call our school nurse first. We call, then they go, okay, time to call the big guys. So long story short, we never know, because when they leave into medical attendance, that becomes HIPAA, which is a protected privacy of a patient. And we only would know why they had a seizure if the family chooses to tell us. So, and we don't really ask, except we say, there may be other kids affected by this, and we try to
get as much information
we
as
try
you can.
because we're here to save kids. We need to know if you took something, if we need to check on other kids.
Right.
Straight up. And that's kind of how we address it. So we don't get those reports, again, unless the family provides them for us. Things that now I do know what the nurse at the UIHS training for fentanyl said. If the mouth is turning blue, so there's some coloring indications and some pupil indications about a fentanyl overdose. So that, I think, was the most enlightening piece, was they talked about the coloring. And so that they could say, yes, lips are turning blue, skin is becoming a different color. Like, they're able to, that's different than the nick or the dab of marijuana or a seizure. That's a medical seizure. So all that, and again, did our jobs just get harder? Absolutely. But, we have to protect kids, and we have to do that. To the 4 or 5 students, I can't remember how many we're up to, that we've called on medical attention, additional medical attention. No family has reported that fentanyl, was found. But I won't tell you that all families reported to me.
The school has no ability to know as to why students need medical attention when it comes to drug overdoses, or even if they are drug overdoses in the first place, with only the families of students being able to inform staff after, with very few even saying what had happened, or being so vague that it doesn't even help staff. This disconnect of information then allows rumors to begin and spread. With a lot of these rumors, it's a lot of misinformation. People don't know what exactly happening. At first, a lot of people thought it was fentanyl.
Absolutely.
So now it's what exactly is it, and if you have any sort of idea of it. Because what I've heard from other students is that usually you can tell, it's what I've heard recently is that it's cough syrup or cough medicine, and that they have it in these carts, these sort of vape pens, and you can tell because it's a rainbow color. Do you know anything about that, or is that like completely new information?
We heard about cough syrup for a bigger crash, that whole, what I would say, an escapism, avoidism. Yeah. But I also don't know, like, in my brain, I kind of go, why would cough syrup make you, like, need medical attention? Like, why, so I don't know. It must be a mix. So the other thing I heard was it's a mix with something. And we have never, and we search a lot of kids, and we do bring our prison, we do partner with the CDC prison, and they bring their 2 dogs about every other week. They kind of touch on a lot of things because they're prison dogs. They're trained differently than a canine with the police department. And we haven't hit on anything like that. That doesn't mean it's not out there. So I'm not going to be so naive to say that we know what's going on. I will tell you, right now, my students are in crisis. My students are looking for escapism. My students are looking, there's a lot of kids who need that next adrenaline rush. There's a lot out there. I'm not foolish. I also don't believe I'm gonna, search every child who walks in my school. I don't have that. I don't have that resource available. I'm afraid of that 1 or 2 kids who are, making their own. It sounds like with, their cough syrup and other stuff. I think I have not seen it. I don't know much about it. I have heard about the cough syrup. I'm not I didn't study biology or chemistry, so I don't know anything about how that would react. And we have no training on that. We do know that with January's active shooter training, we know that a lot of the staff get a lot out of the drug training as well. Just going, okay, what are we looking for? For example, when vapes went into highlighters, or vapes looked like flash drives. Yeah. It's like that's a flash drive in your mouth, but we're old.
Yeah, it's changed times.
It's changed time, and advertisers are amazing when they want to target an age, as we know from Storm. So I think I'm super worried and afraid, and I have a child who's becoming a teenager. I want kids to have some critical thinking skills and to say, okay, what is this I'm taking into my body? We just, your kids have that invincibility, brain and that awesome, cortex that's not quite developed, prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
We don't think about consequences, but the biggest fear is that you're going to do something that you don't know what it is. And that was, and I've witnessed it probably about 15 years ago. And I don't know if you remember, they were called, bath salts.
Okay.
And I still don't understand really what that is. But we had a couple of students that were just in jibber jabber land, and it was very, very scary because they were not themselves. They could not make sense. They couldn't string a sentence together. They became violent, and it was just, they're talking about some of the top students who were very bright.
Right. And
it's like they just took something, and it's like, well, why did you do that? You ask why, or what was it? And a homemade drug is scary. A lot of kids go, oh, well, weed, it's natural. I'm not here to argue about it. What I am here to say is, this is your body, and you only get one of them. It's kind of how I feel.
Right.
Know what you put in it. I'm not going to preach to you, but know what you put in it.
Yeah, be smart with what you're doing.
So back to cough syrup. Yes, I've heard it. Don't know much about it. Haven't been able to find it. And when I ask kids that I think might know about it, they go, huh? In the way that they do. Yeah, and I've been flipping before, and I'm like, oh, kids aren't, I don't mean to be flippant about it. My job is to oversee your education and to oversee my teachers. It's to oversee the safety of this wonderful little town that I call Norte High School, which is a miniature town. But I can't watch. I'm not Big Brother. I can't watch you. I don't have TVs in every single stall, in every single classroom watching you. I'm not going to do that. We live where we live, and we have freedoms. It's just making sure that you guys use your critical thinking.
It would be absurd to believe school staff know what is going on within the lives of students 24/7, or even what goes on at campus at all times. However, they do try. With the little funding there is and a shortage of staff, various systems and groups are set up to try and relieve these issues on campus. Besides for the teachers' training and all of that, it would be, what has the school done towards that? Like you referenced Storm. Is there any sort of systems in place, or is there any sort of programs that students or staff can join or be a part of to kind of push for that to sort of educate?
That's a great question. So we need to really look at our California health standards in the freshman year. We also, there's some ideas came up from the parent forum that we had on the vapes. Yeah. Do we have education at every level that every child can receive? So not just freshman California health standards, but what would a lesson plan look for a senior or look like for a junior or a sophomore? Are we doing diligence? We have resources out there when it comes to drug education. The Stanford Toolkit, for example, or Catch My Breath, those are some of the state California sanctioned ones that are free. PowerPoints, lesson plans, videos, you name it, they have it. That's something that we have not done that we could do better. So that's one idea. As far as clubs go, so we have, we're lucky enough to have on our campus what's called an AOD counselor, alcohol and other drug counselor. And so the services there, are like, okay, if a kid wants to quit, and it's more than just a cessation meeting, but we can meet with it one-on-one with a counselor who's trained. That's important to me because it's about health. We have some peer groups, we have one-on-ones, so that's a second thing that we've done in response. It's beyond the other thing that is important to me that we know, and the statistics can prove it, is that the more involved that students are, the less likely they're going to use drugs because they're getting their acceptance, their joy, their adrenaline, whatever it is, from another place. Whether it's a sport, whether it's music, whether it's media arts, whether it's a club, that energy would go there. So we really want to promote that student leadership piece. So we always talk about clubs. Every message, join a club, join a club, join a club. And so that's like preaching to the choir right now. So we don't have, though, a directed effort. We get money from the state of California from something called the TUPE funds. It's Tobacco Usage Prevention Education. So through Propositions 99 and 56, every county Office of Ed can apply for these funds up to, like, I think a total of $75,000 a year. The school district, in response, puts up signs that says no tobacco, no vaping. So you see signs out in front of all the schools and all the school buildings. We can't have alcohol or tobacco at any event that is on school grounds. So nobody at my football game can smoke. Nobody at my basketball games can smoke or vape. And so we get to have a nice conversation. I say, just, you can't do that here. So we fall back on that. We have Ed Board policy that we make sure that we update that says there's no vape or e-cigarettes or tobacco products on our campuses that the board knows about. We have these things, so all those are policies and awesomeness, but it's like, okay, but the kids are still doing it. And I think what we haven't done is say, okay, kids, what would make you stop? My one-on-one conversations with some of my kids that I worry about check in with me every day. Check in with me. And you go, okay, I have counselors, I have teachers who are trusted adults, I have clubs, but what would they say? And they go, it's not that bad. They don't want to address, I think, the issue. And you kind of go, why do we do bad habits? Well, we do bad habits because it's usually a response to something. We already know that Delaware County is very high for our childhood ACEs, our adverse childhood experiences. My students have been traumatized. How do we address the trauma? How do we acknowledge and say, yeah, and you can handle this without a synthetic drug. You can handle this. You're strong enough. And that message at this age, finding your grit, finding your determination, finding your passion, finding your purpose. I keep saying that lately. Because if you have a purpose, it's like, okay, you have something to live for. And you're important and you're valuable. Yeah, all of that is what we need. So, we're working on it. But I like the lesson plan at the grade levels. I love the board policies about tobacco prevention. I love the fact that STORM, we can encourage that student leadership piece. And some of the other ideas that the City of California, other programs put out, have been student-made videos. So the other thing is the idea of students needing an immediate hit. And so this is different with some of the addictions that we see now. Back 20 years ago when I was a teacher, kids could go off campus and smoke. And not that they could. It was still illegal, but they did. They left campus. Yeah. And now it's like, okay, it's so convenient. We're going to go to the bathroom, and vape has no smell. There's no, you just smell like a cigarette, that odor of real tobacco or of marijuana. It doesn't, you can't see it once it vaporizes or whatever goes away. That's puff. The puff bars are easy access. And all of a sudden life changed for teenagers because this immediate, I have kids who are addicted. You see them go to the bathroom every hour. Yeah. And I'm like, why do you need this hit? So that is hard for me physiologically too. It's like physiologically, and I said this on your show last year, the idea about, on Paul's show, like, kids don't know the long-term effects of vaping. It's too new, and you're not developed. And that scares me. That just scares me. So once again, yes, policies, STORM, clubs, 2P funding, grade level lessons, and we're open to ideas for more stuff. Ask the kids. Yeah.
A lot of it just kind of boils down to the community and kind of pushing for that. And that's what I'm assuming with the school. What I've seen, everything is that's what's going on.
Well, but again, one problem of 752. If you look at what our problems are: chronic absenteeism, chronic tardyism. Teacher shortage. Yeah. Staffing out, kids out sick. We still have post-pandemic, still have, education standards, we bullying, harassing, fights, mental health. It's like all of this, we just have to take a step. How do you prioritize? Yeah. How do you prioritize? Can I tell you, honestly, can I look at Bryce and say, drugs are my number one priority here? No. And I'm not sorry about that. But I have to say to you, it can't all be a priority. Because if it's all a priority, nothing's a priority. And I go to, are my students safe? That's my priority. And then so people can say, well, they're not safe because there's drugs. And I go, yeah, there is. And give me some ideas on how to fight that. We think about keyless entries to bathrooms. Like, okay, hey, if Bryce had a hotel key and he went to the bathroom, so we know he's in there because it's his name and his pass. He's been in there for 10 minutes. Okay, we're searching him. Like, I also then need another full-time employee who will just do that.
Just go around searching kids all day.
And I just, it is a community thing. It's a community problem. It's a community solution. And I want to know what other schools are doing. I want to know. Parents really want more resources here. That means they want more adults in the halls. And like, okay, if I had an adult in front of all the bathrooms at all times, but you can't have an adult in the bathroom. That's weird. So, I don't know. I need to get kids interested and inspired in something else.
And who knows what that is.
They do.
Yeah.
Or not, I don't know.
A challenging part of all of this seems to be a generational disconnect, not just between school and student, but the community at large, toppled with the issues of ever-growing, almost alien technology in a now post-pandemic world, shortages of staff, issues outside of anyone's control, and the inability to prioritize these complex issues. The solution to all of this could be something as simple as community.
We're a high school. We're a hub of the community. We have more memories in the gym and at the football field. If you ask the community members, like, what do you remember, or photography at cultural centers with proms and things like that with people's fathers that I know. We have these memories that are here. And now many of those memories have been traumatic for some people, but many memories have been stellar. And they have, delightful yearbooks of times of celebration, of joy, of friendship, of being a teenager. And, I don't want to hide anything. I don't want to overreact. I want to have one purpose, which is to run this school to the best of my ability every day, following ed code, following policy, promoting inspiration and curiosity and critical thinking. That's what our job is. If we can empower, that's the word, empower our parents and our families and our guardians to have some honest conversations. I mean, I put out on the sign, like, talk to your kids about fentanyl. If I wasn't there, I'd be like, well, what am I supposed to talk about? Like, I don't know what it is. Child, what's fentanyl?
Right.
So, and then, it's the idea of, we need to be honest, and we need to respond when response is the right thing to do. And that's hard because we all have agendas. I mean, we all have agendas. So, but I would absolutely talk to your friends. I mean, because some kids have some crazy stories, I'm sure, and some kids have no stories. And that there's that. So you do have this incredible pendulum of a variety of students, and we just need to remember that this is our community, and that what we put in, we get out.
The takeaway from this interview can be a lot of things. My thoughts, after having this discussion with Miss Eckart as a student of Del Norte High, is that this serious issue is not something out of the ordinary, and it is an issue that stems from several other glaring unresolved problems. This topic and the worries surrounding it come from a lack of support for students, for school staff, and a general disassociation of the community at large. There needs to be an open dialogue, and it can start anywhere, whether it's at home, on school campus, with peers, parents, or staff. I want to thank Miss Eckart for allowing me to have this interview with her and being so open to having a dialogue about such a touchy subject. From Redwood Voice Community News, I'm Bryce Evans.